Did you know that there are actually two types of guitar practice? Well, most beginner and intermediate students are taught that repetition is the key to success in the practice room. And repetition is certainly a big part of it, but if that's all you think there is to it, you are definitely going to want to stick around for today's lesson because I'm going to show you exactly how you can use these two types of guitar practice to get better results from any of your guitar practice routines. Why? You know why. Because you're a guitar player, and this is GuitarAmado. Well, hello, all my wonderful guitar playing friends out there. Welcome back to another exciting edition of GuitarAmado, where the goal is to show you how to think for yourself as a guitarist and a musician, so that you can play it your way and become your own teacher. I'm your humble host, Adam Amado, and I'm coming at you every single Friday with brand new episodes. So be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell if you like what you see. And now on with today's lesson. The two types of guitar practice every guitarist should be aware of. Now this lesson is a continuation from last week's lesson where we were looking at cleaning up the sounds of your chords. Specifically, we looked at the G chord and the C chord. So on the surface, the goal of this practice routine just seems like repetition, right? It's that age-old thing of, okay, we've got an exercise, we're switching between two chords, and we're just going to put it on repeat and play it over and over and over and over again. So that is definitely the dominant sort of default mode most guitar players think about when it comes to any practice routine, is mostly that blind repetition. You're just repeating it over and over again until you get it right. But the truth of the matter is, if you want faster and better results, blind repetition alone is not going to get you there. It's all about setting the proper intentions for each practice routine before you dive into that repetitive nature. So defining those intentions really comes down to two basic questions. Why do you want to practice the things that you're practicing? And how do you want to go about practicing it? So first question, why, is typically pretty easy to answer. So in this case, we're practicing a G and a C chord. Why do we want to practice those? Well, a very simple answer could be those two chords are found in a ton of songs that I want to learn how to play. So definitely keep that in mind as you're answering these questions for yourself. If you're struggling to come up with an answer, you're probably overthinking it. So next, you're asking yourself, how do I want to practice this? And this is precisely where those two types of guitar practice come into play. First, we have technical practice, and second, we have performance practice. These two types of guitar practice ultimately come down to your mindset, right? We're setting those intentions for how we want to practice these chords within this specific practice routine. So last week was definitely more of a technical practice routine. And today we're going to look at those same two chords. So essentially it's the exact same exercise with a different intention behind it. So we're switching our how from technical practice to performance practice. So when we're thinking about the differences between these two types of guitar practice, technical practice comes down to stopping and fixing your mistakes. And performance practice comes down to learning to live with your mistakes. So in a technical practice routine, we're giving ourselves all the time in the world to analyze the issues and figure out how to fix those problems. And it's really the starting point of how you get the results that you're looking for. So when it comes down to performance practice, then timing becomes way more important than technique. Because at the end of the day, music is just sound that has been organized over time. And how we organize that sound over time comes down to rhythm. Without rhythm, music is not very enjoyable to listen to. unless you're John Cage or something. So as we shift this practice routine from a technical routine to more of a performance routine, timing becomes the number one focus. It's our primary intention behind this practice routine, is making those chord switches in the proper time. And I always recommend to start with a metronome with this. You know, playing along with the recordings of the songs that you're learning is certainly a good way to practice this as well, but you have a lot more freedom and flexibility when you're using a metronome to adjust the speed and ultimately adjusting the difficulty level. So let me go ahead and throw on a metronome and I will play through a little of this to demonstrate this style of practice routine. All right, so we're in 4/4 time here and I have my metronome set to 80 beats per minute. If you take a listen here, you'll notice one of those beats has an accent on it, right? It's a little bit louder than the other ones. That is always going to be beat number 1. All right, so the first sort of level that I like to teach my beginner students is just changing your chords on beat number 1. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So now if you really think about it, what we're practicing has not changed at all. We're still just practicing switching from a G chord to a C chord and back and forth. Why we're practicing it hasn't changed at all. We still want to get good at these chords so that we can use them in the songs that we want to learn. And the only thing that has changed is the how. Our intentions for practicing these chords has shifted from cleaning up the sound to keeping in time with the metronome. So hopefully you're starting to think of different strategies that you can use these two types of guitar practice for. So sort of the 10,000 foot view here would be you're keeping these two types of practice separate in the beginning, but as you work on them more and more individually, eventually they start to blend together and you can focus on both of them at the same time. But fair warning, it does take quite a while to get to that level to where you can divide your attention among all those little details. But that is, in fact, the main reason for separating these two types of practice to begin with. Because each time you work on these types of practice individually, you're strengthening those neural pathways in your brain, and it gets easier and easier to eventually think of both at the same time. So before we wrap things up for the day, I just want to talk to you a little bit about decreasing or increasing the difficulty of this performance style of practice. So let's say that the 80 beats per minute was almost there for you, but you're just really struggling to get clean sounding chords. Like you can make the transitions and they maybe sound halfway decent, but you're still like not quite there with perfectly clean sounding chords. So what you would do in that case is you maybe want to just give yourself more time in between the chord switches. So how might you go about doing that? Yep, that's totally right. You just move the metronome speed down to a more comfortable and manageable speed. So let's go ahead and bump the metronome down to 60 and see what happens. So you can see this is a lot slower, which means you're going to have more time in between your chord switches. And that just basically gives you more time to think about what adjustments you need to make as you're going through these chords. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. So you see with that extra time there, I was even lifting my fingers off a little early just to kind of help me prepare that next chord so I can be right there on beat 1. All right, so now let's put the metronome back up to 80 beats per minute. So let's say that you've been working on this performance practice routine for quite a while and you're feeling very comfortable and confident switching your chords on beat 1 at 80 beats per minute. Now what can you do to increase the difficulty level? So right away, the obvious choice would just be to do the opposite of what we did last time and increase the speed of the metronome, which totally works. That's perfectly fine if you choose to go that route. But right now I want to show you a different way of increasing the difficulty that is actually going to be a little bit more practical when it comes time to performing actual songs. And that is moving your chord switches to different beats within that 4-beat grouping. So what we can do then is decide to execute our chord switches on beats 1 and 3. So that might look like this. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you can see, that is definitely way more difficult. You're switching your chords twice as fast now, right? Because instead of waiting 4 beats to switch, you're waiting only 2 beats to switch. So you're going twice as fast. But in addition to the actual chord transitions themselves, you're getting practice counting and keeping track of different beats within the measure. And that is a huge advantage for any type of performance situation, is just being able to keep track of where those beats are falling. So that's all for now. I really hope that this video helped to shed some light on those mysteries of guitar practice for you, and just really got you thinking about how you can take more control in your own practice routines and just get experimenting with this stuff. Because ultimately, once you understand how to set clear intentions for each practice routine and take full control over your guitar practice, you're going to start noticing that it's going to take you less time to learn new skills. And more importantly, you're going to know how to adjust any practice routine in order to get the exact results that you are looking for. Because as always, it comes down to what works best for you. Not me, not somebody else. How do you need to practice to get the results that you are looking for your specific goals? So be sure to leave me a comment if you have any further questions about this vast subject of guitar practice. And let me know if you'd like to learn more about creating effective practice routines in the future. Also, don't forget to hit that like button if you found this video to be useful. I will see you next week, and until then, happy practicing, my friends.